thank you very much. Anybody want to say hello back home?
Well, just everybody back home.
Well, that pretty much narrows it down, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Okay. Hey, you guys think everybody talks about the city and not sounding like the country? Take a listen to our crickets. Isn't that nice? Woo!
What was that?
Little jackhammer action.
He has one of the most recognizable faces in the country, and he's been taking the country's temperature for the past 20 years. And we're putting out a rap album. Al Roker and I are actually we're going to do it with the heavyweights.
That's right. We'll get Rush Limbaugh for
Rush.
this. You, me, and Rush. We'll test the studio, and then we're there. Bam!
Man, can you imagine what a hit? Al, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
You know, you're doing a lot of work these days. You must love work.
Well, you know what? My dad was my role model, is my role model. And he was a bus driver for the New York City Transit Authority, and he worked 2 shifts sometimes to put food on the table, and worked his way up, dispatcher, chief dispatcher. He retired about 5 years ago as one of the head labor relations guys for the Transit Authority. And he said, you know, as long as I'm having a good time, I'll do anything. And when he stopped having a good time, he retired. You know, but so I like what I do. I mean, this is great. This is fun.
Listen, it beats the heck out of going to a job.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, there's no heavy lifting except for when we get out of a chair, you know. But I mean, it's good fun.
How's your show going on CNBC? I see you every once in a while, and I think you're terrific.
Well, thanks. We're having a great time. Last week we had Matt Lauer on. We've had Rush. We've had
Matt's kind of an ugly guy. Is he going to make it?
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't know.
I don't think Matt's got much of a shot. Do you? I mean, he's not a bad guy, but he's not very good looking.
Yeah, he's got a good voice, but the
nice voice.
Face is
reads the prompter well, but he's just kind of a homely guy.
It's the nose.
I think it is. There's a problem.
You know, he's a great guy. So we're having a good time with it, you know, because we've done just about everything. We've covered the O.J. Simpson thing for a couple of weeks, and so I'm really pleased with it.
Did you know O.J.? Because he worked at NBC. I met him like you did. I didn't know him
kind
well.
Of thing. You know, we just see him.
It is so weird to see this story. I don't know. You don't know what to think about it. You think, God, if an O.J. could do it. You don't know whether he did or not, but if he could, then anybody.
See, and I think that's why it's just grabbed America, because I've talked about it with family members, friends, and I think the scary part about it is I think given the right set of circumstances and the right time frame, I think we're all capable of that kind of violence. Maybe not for that reason, but given a certain reason, whether you're threatened or a family member or a loved one, maybe you could do the same thing or something like that to either really seriously injure or kill someone. If somebody threatened my daughter, I know that I don't know what I would do. So,
well, I've thought about that. I mean, I know everybody talks about gun control, but I mean, I've thought when my daughter was growing up, if somebody came into my home and threatened my family, I'd do what I had to do.
Sure. You know, so I think that's why, and the other thing is about television. You know, television creates this sense of camaraderie, this sense of kinship that we feel we know you. The folks we watch on TV, we feel we know. And then for something like that to happen, it's like, he's such a nice guy. He's such a good guy.
I don't want to blow your image, but you seem so happy all the time. Are you a happy guy?
I think so. I mean, you know.
You must get like deep depression sometimes.
You know, there are times where I get, you know, when angst or stress, that sort of thing. But the fact of the matter is, I'm really blessed. God has blessed me. I've got a very healthy daughter. I've got a great job. I've got family members who love me and I love. After that, you know, I mean,
how can people tell when you're starting to get angry? Do you get loud or quiet?
I get quiet.
Get quiet.
And it takes. I mean, I've got a very, very long fuse, but when I go, it's not pretty, and it's one of those things where, I mean, I almost lose control, and it's happened a couple of times, only a couple of times. But
you ever punch anybody out?
No, I've shoved a few people. I've never punched anybody out, but you know, I've gotten into some. I
had a roommate in college who hated the fact that I used to throw clothes on a bed. I didn't know this. For 6 months, the guy studied karate so he could kill me. He came in one night. 6 months later, I threw the thing on the bed. He went, ah! And I punched him in the mouth. He dropped like a rock.
And there you go.
It was over. I thought, geez, poor guy, 6 months of lessons. You know? And the reason is, they always taught him in class to stop short.
No. You know, follow through.
You got to see stop.
Hey, look at my thumb.
And it didn't hurt. So I always wondered that.
No,
but you never have.
Yeah, I've never lost it that much. But you know, I mean, I get angry. I suffer the same things and the same angst that everybody else does. I tend to whistle a lot. It's hard to be ticked off and whistle. you know.
It's a good
You know, it's
point.
like
You hear
Steve
the
Martin said, you can't be, you know, ticked off and play the banjo. It's the same kind of deal, you know, same theory, you know. So when I get upset, I whistle the A-Team theme, and I'm a happy guy.
What is your secret fantasy about what would Roker like to do? What, you know, you could would you like to be a dramatic actor? Or?
You know, my all-time fantasy would be to be a head animator for Walt Disney. You know, I mean,
sit in a room like this?
yeah, that's what I really wanted to do as a kid. And in the weather stuff, we use the computer graphics, and I do some animation, some crude animation, but animation nonetheless. But that would be my ultimate fantasy. Other fantasy would have been like to be a Norm type character on Cheers. You know, be a second banana, you know, walking, hey Norm, hello everybody, you know, what's up? My nipples, it's freezing outside. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. But other than that,
You've been doing sitcoms.
Yeah, I did a part on Seinfeld, which I still get people coming up to me and say, hey, I love John Seinfeld. And even more importantly, I get a rerun check. So that's even...
You're kidding.
Yeah, that's fabulous.
When you were a little kid, did you think someday I'm going to make as much money as I make?
No idea. I to this day, I mean, my folks live in Queens, and I come up a lot of times when I'm coming back to Manhattan, I come over the Midtown Tunnel Bridge, which if you're not in New York, it shows you the expanse of Manhattan from downtown up to uptown. And I still am amazed. I said, I'm working here. People know who I am. You know. So no, I had no inkling whatsoever that I was going to be doing this.
Is part of the reason that you work so much to break out of the weatherman mold? Because
No,
after
you know what? I like the weather. Willard
did.
Scott gave me, when I worked in Washington and Willard was the weatherman at WRC and I was an independent, best bit of advice is 2 bits. Be yourself and never give up your day job. And I like weather. I like doing it. I mean, a lot of people have used weather as a stepping stone. Letterman, Brokaw, Diane Sawyer. I like doing it.
Yeah, Diane Sawyer was a weather woman in Louisville, Kentucky. We're going to have to take a break. We'll be back with the weather guru, Al Roker, my friend. Stay with us.
Her name?
I'm Alicia Figueroa.
And you?
Cruz Figueroa.
And this is your niece?
Milagro Lopez.
Okay, and she just happens to be you. Who's your daughter?
Carmen White.
Our unit manager. Hey, Carmen. Okay, I'll take that in my paycheck.
You know him as a weatherman, but he's been on Seinfeld. He's doing a lot of things. He's got a talk show on CNBC. He's really a great broadcaster, Al Roker. What was your fascination with broadcasting?
You know, it was just, even my mom reminded me this, oh gosh, I guess about a couple of years ago. When I was about 6 years old, I differentiated television between wet shows and dry shows. To me, live shows looked dry and filmed shows looked wet. And I was always fascinated by cartoons, and they were on television. And, I mean, I never really intended to be on the air. I wanted to be a writer or a director. And
Where'd you get the gift for gab? Was that mom or dad?
I think I got the gift of gab from my mother and the sense of humor from my mom, and whatever smoothness or charm, I think, from my father. You know, he's got a great voice and is a very, just a really neat guy. And my mom, everybody who hears her thinks she's Jewish. You know, she sounds like a Jewish mom, you know. Albert, you know, I'm kidding. Mom, but yeah, so they really are, and they've been married 42 years, and they never had a fight, but... But they're great folks. They really are.
Al, let me get serious for a second. You and I work in a business where everybody makes a decent living, and we do a kind of job that I think people in our business are a lot more open in general. The state of race relations in this country, are you worried about it? It seems I've had a couple people on recently who've said it's getting worse. And I think the general perception among whites is that it's getting better. I don't know.
I think I don't think it's at this boiling point that everybody says it is. Otherwise, I think just in a city like New York, when you have hundreds and thousands of people interacting every day, you'd have fights breaking out everywhere. But I think there is a sense. I think not just among whites, blacks, but I think some whites as well that. We need to be more open and honest with each other, and I don't think that that's happened. And I think that there is a problem, but I think when people end up talking to each other on a one-on-one basis, there are people who work together every day. They may not be best friends. Well, hey, you're not best friends with anybody, everybody in your own race. Right. But they get together and they work, and where they may not socialize together, they may not go to the same schools or the same churches, but they coexist. And maybe that's the best we can do. I mean, except on a one-to-one basis. I mean, I have friends who, the old cliche, some of my best friends are white, some of my best friends are Asian. I just have friends. And that's I think what we need to work toward. Not that, he's a black weatherman, just he's a weatherman who happens to be black. When my daughter will say something about a kid in school, I mean, right now, she doesn't identify them as being white or black, or it's just my friend.
Has anybody identified her in a way that's caused her a problem?
Not yet, but I'm sure she's going to be entering second grade, and I'm sure that issue is going to come up. So it's one of those things that
Do you pre-warn her, or do you wait till it happens?
I think you almost wait till it happens, or at least that's the tact I've taken and my wife has taken. And that. Why get her all worked up about something that may happen, but you don't know when, and you deal with it when it does. And in the meantime, you let her know that everybody's equal, that everybody is created the same in God's eyes.
It occurs to me that we are not going to be successful as a nation until we solve whatever problems exist among the races. Is there anything that the average citizen can do about this problem, or is it one of these, I'm so sick of people saying society caused this, so-and-so caused. It's an individual thing.
Exactly. I think it's a matter of taking people on a one-to-one basis. Are there African American racists? You bet. Are there white racists? Sure. Asian, Hispanic. But if you just take people on a one-to-one basis, and maybe somebody African American or somebody white did something bad, but maybe 5 or 6 people who are good people. That's a one-to-one thing. You don't generalize, and that's the big mistake we always make. About whoever, either about our own races or other people's races, that we generalize. Well, Asians are bad drivers. What the heck is that? I mean,
it sounds like the comedy club.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like an Asian comic.
Exactly. So that's somebody like Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce and these people who were considered so controversial because they spoke the truth. But again, they dealt with if you deal with people one-on-one, you can't go wrong. And as you meet people, don't make generalizations. I mean, I'll never forget, I had a college roommate who happened to be white from Long Island, and I was talking about my family and the fact that I was raised Catholic, and he just was like sitting there with this dumbstruck look on his face. I said, "Chris, what's wrong?" He goes, "Well, gee, I just never knew any black people who had a good family life." I said, well, how many black people do you know? Well, I don't, not personally any. I said, well, how? Yeah. I mean, I'm just amazed by it.
Is there an issue of growing? We hear a lot about black males deserting the family. Mm-hmm. Is that any more or less prevalent than ever, or is that a myth? Or
I don't know if it's a myth. I don't know if it. There are a lot of single parent African American families. I mean, I've gone through a divorce, but I don't consider that I've abandoned my daughter. I mean, I support her. So.
You love her. You see her. You go to school, don't you?
I volunteer each week. I mean, I get her on weekends. So it may be a problem, but again, I can't speak to everybody else. I know what my situation is. I know what situations are with the people I know, and I know a lot of nuclear families. I grew up in a mom and dad family. I mean, it wasn't Ward Cleaver home, but it was a home that was filled with love and support. And
how would you be as a politician? I think you'd be pretty good. I mean, you're honest. You got a sense of humor.
I don't know. I don't. You know what? I don't know if we really value
honesty
in a politician. Or I think goodness almost is seen as a weakness. I mean, I think you've got to, which is sad. I mean, I think we have, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, I think we want these people to be held up to such higher standards than we hold for ourselves. And so, if I'm a politician or thinking of entering public life, why do I need that?
Does a politician's personal life, should it enter into a decision?
You mean as to whether you vote for them or not?
Yeah.
Only if for some reason that politician's personal life would somehow impact on their doing their job. But other than, I don't see why. I mean, our personal lives a lot of times doesn't affect how we do our jobs, and I just.
Is the media out of control then, just looking for a story?
I think so. I think it's a feeding frenzy, and I think, I mean, it's come now that we found out that John F. Kennedy, maybe he had affairs or that sort of thing. Did that have anything to do with his worth as a president? I don't know, but I don't think so. And these are human beings, who can.
There have been people who've said that if Richard Nixon had done a little more of that, he'd have been a little clear-headed,
well,
more clear-headed.
Who knows?
There are people who've argued on both sides. I think the question was one of morality and whether or not you present yourself as a family person and then do something else.
Well,
There's a sense of hypocrisy that might be a relevant
in that
question.
case. But if you've made peace with your family and your family, whether it's your spouse or whoever, accepts what you are and who you are, then
it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back with Al Roker. We have a few minutes left with Al Roker. I don't want you to take the entire 3 minutes. I'd like you to take like 30 seconds and tell me what Doppler radar is.
Doppler radar.
Doppler is radar.
Yes.
I mean, that's
The
a big
Doppler-
promotion thing,
Yes.
and I don't know what
You
I'm
bet.
watching.
Well,
when
the
I
fact
see
that
this.
it's radar that not only sees rain, but it measures the difference intensity, which other radars do. But
Is that the little yellow and green stuff on the screen?
Yellow, green, red. But when it gets to the purple, that measures turbulence, the difference in winds within a storm, and so that's where the severe thunderstorms.
Now, where is this Doppler?
Our
Is this
Doppler
a guy
radar,
on a roof?
It is. It's a thing on the roof on the GE building.
On the
70
GE
stories up
building in New York City, in
That's right.
Manhattan.
So, and all across the country, local television stations have their own Doppler radar, and they can also tap into the National Weather Service's Doppler.
How good do you have to be at math to be a weatherman? I wasn't
Not at
real
all.
good at you. I mean,
mean,
I'm afraid they're going to want me to learn things about physics and
Well,
stuff.
to be a weatherman, you don't have to know anything. To be a meteorologist, you got to take physics, you got to take courses. I mean, I did not major in meteorology. I took a couple of classes just for a science requirement before I even got my first job. So, I mean, I know a little bit of what I'm talking about, and we have a meteorologist who works with us, so we're both on the Today Show.
So they give you the sort of the here it is.
Well, I work.
kind of-
I know enough to work on a forecast too, and I do the graphics. And that's what I like about it. It's different every day.
Is the weather changing? I get the sense that the winters are colder. There's more rain in the summers. There are more floods. Is God mad or something?
Well,
I mean,
you know
is there
what?
something going on
The
here?
problem with climate is you got to look at it over at least 30 years. So by the time you're in a trend,
Right.
you're in it. This is probably going to be the hottest in New York City, the hottest summer on record.
See, I told you. This guy is upset about something.
And last summer was the second hottest. So I don't know. I mean, it is something that we're watching because the patterns have changed. El Nino, the jet stream, all these things, and it's like, well, what's causing it? That's the question, and we don't know. I mean, the
Where's
wildfires
the best
out
place
west.
in the United States to live weather-wise?
Well, it depends on what you consider best weather, but I think most temperate, I would think probably. Then they got the wildfires out west.
Yeah, you don't want to be out there.
I really don't know. I mean,
It depends on what your taste is, probably.
Cleveland, I think.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
I lived in Cleveland. I
did
moved.
too.
I'm an idiot.
I
You
love
lived in-
Cleveland.
You were at WKYC?
Yes,
I was there when it was the old KYW.
Yeah.
I moved to Philadelphia when it,
the
I guess I was
Swapperoo.
65. Yeah, they flopped.
Yeah, but
what's your greatest ambition now?
To keep my jobs.
You hear that, Bob Wright? Bill Bolster?
That's right.
You guys listening? Pay attention.
Yeah, and you, because I work for
That's
you
right,
at
yeah, that's
CNBC.
right. Well, you're safe at CNBC
Okay,
because
all
we
right.
love the show.
Hey,
Thanks for coming over.
thanks, Roger.
All right, Al. Terrific.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow night.